Hello everyone, this is week 4 and the final week of my Hobbii Advent calendar. This week I had some soft alpaca lace. It is 100% alpaca in color number 43. And some alpaca blaze, that is 40% acrylic, 30% alpaca, and 30% polyamide. There was a small bag with some little cedar hearts in it. Very cute, and they smell amazing. There were red and green darning needles. Some light bulb shaped stitch markers. And a small notebook with the dotted grids. I already have plans for this notebook, so I was very excited to see that. The pattern that came with this week, I was not very excited about. You can see right there, it's fine. It's a bandana length scarf, which is just not really me. So I actually spent about a week trying to decide what I wanted to do, if I even wanted to do this pattern, or if I wanted to use the yarn to do something else. Finally, I went ahead and decided I have someone who would really enjoy this pattern. I'm going to go ahead, make it as is, and then I will gift the bandana. Sat down and got started. So just a little bit more about this particular yarn. The soft lace alpaca is 100% alpaca. It is listed as a 2.5 to 3 millimeter knitting needle or a 2 to a 2.5 millimeter crochet hook. You get 50 grams in a ball, and it is approximately 400 meters. It is 100% alpaca, so hand wash and wool detergent only. The alpaca blaze, as I said before, is 40% acrylic, 30% alpaca, 30% polyamide. It is recommended to use a knitting needle of 4.5 to 5 millimeter. I was actually a little bit excited to try working with this yarn because both were yarns from Hobbii that I had not tried before. The color was not something I would have picked out for myself. I don't tend to go for the brown sort of neutrals. If I'm going neutral, I'm probably going to go more of a gray or a black. But that's part of the fun of a calendar like this. You end up with things that you might not have picked out for yourself otherwise. The crochet hook I am using is a 4mm Furls crochet hook. It is one of the newer lines from their Streamline Zodiac. It is the Sagittarius. Can't really see the color very well in there, but it's a very pretty purple with little bits of glitter and yellow. I thought it might be fun to have a slightly more colorful hook with the much more neutral brown of the yarn. It doesn't actually really affect the way that you crochet to have a pretty hook, but it certainly doesn't hurt either. So the pattern that came with this week's box was the oak bandana scarf. And I know I mentioned I wasn't very excited about it. There isn't anything technically wrong with this pattern. It's just not really me. I tend to definitely go for bigger scarves, more colorful scarves, and one that is very small. Even with my bigger scarves, sometimes they try to fall off. So I was a little bit worried about that to begin with. And even when I decided that I knew somebody who would be perfect to gift this to and I should just go ahead and start with it, it was definitely a little bit hard to feel excited about completing this project. The pattern was very, very easy to follow. It's just definitely one of those that I would never have picked for myself. And that kind of affected my excitement as I went along. So, with some of the other things that came in this box, the lantern shaped stitch markers, those are some that I actually really do love having on hand. I tend to use them to turn things into stitch markers with little charms, beads that I might find at the craft store, whatever, just to make it a little more fun than a plain stitch marker. So those will probably be being set aside to turn into something a little more fun. And as I mentioned, I do have plans for the notebook. Over the last few months, I feel like I've been binging buying yarn a little bit. Definitely being much more ambitious in planning my projects than actually making them. So I'm planning on using that to turn it into kind of a yarn buying log where I kind of write down what I'm working on, what I bring in, what I make from yarn I already had versus go out and buy yarn for it. Not necessarily a yarn buying freeze, but more of a yarn buying accountability log, something where I actually have to admit when I'm buying yarn with no purpose, even if it's only to a little notebook and myself. I'm definitely not looking to remove or reduce my stash or anything like that. I'm not exactly somebody who has much shame about having a lot of yarn to make a lot of projects, but buying yarn consistently without plans for it, or yarns that I know I'm not actually going to get around to completing the project because I'm too busy planning other projects, it's just really not a good habit to be in. So as I got closer and closer to the end of this bandana, I never really did fall in love with it, even as a gift. I felt like it was a little bit too small, and I was really worried that when I finished it, it would still turn into something that couldn't properly go around someone's neck and stay in place through movement. So I did kind of sleep on finishing it and came back the next day, looked at what I had done, and then had to make the really hard decision to just pull out the scarf. And unfortunately, the fuzziness of the alpaca blaze makes pulling it out very, very difficult. So if you choose to get this yarn, make sure you are in love with the project you are making with it, because you may end up losing the yarn instead of being able to frog the project. This overall Hobbii Advent calendar, it was a fun experience. I got yarns that I had not tried before, some in colors that I would not have tried, and I did kind of force myself to do the patterns that came with it even when I wasn't excited about it. It's not entirely something that is always a good idea because it's really much more fun to work on things you're excited about. However, it was nice to get out of the comfort zone, and it's something I think I'm going to be trying to do a little bit more.